When you come across an animated show that looks like Adventure Time on acid and is basically a mix of talks on philosophical topics in multiple worlds, with apocalypses happening in the background, you just might have some questions.
And do we have answers for them?
Yes, we do. Beware the spoilers, though. Most episodes of the Midnight Gospel have the same structure. A spacecaster, Clancy, travels within a simulator, interviewing people from different planets about various philosophical topics. The characters discuss magic, spirituality, drug use, etc. But the most recurring themes are life and death, with everything in between and everything after.
What actually surprised me is that all of these talks were so chill. Like, the animation itself is trippy, but there is such a contrast between these friendly conversations and the scenes of the apocalypse in the background. Man, it makes everything feel even more surreal.
In fact, all of the talks are based on real interviews from the Duncan Trussel Family Hour, a podcast hosted by one of the creators of the Midnight Gospel, Duncan Trussel, who also voiced Clancy. Most of the characters interviewed are real people with backgrounds in various spiritual teachings and magical practices.
Oh, wow. That explains a lot about these philosophical conversations. But what about the multiple apocalypses in the background? Where did that idea come from?
Duncan Trussel himself said that it's highly unlikely that during an actual apocalypse, people would only talk about the end of the world, unlike in horror survival movies. They would most likely muse on all topics related to life and death. If not at that time, when else? That was one reason why he chose the final format of the series. Another reason for making the Midnight Gospel about dimension traveling is because Duncan believed some of the interviews on his podcast were so life-changing that they actually might be world-altering for the audience. So listening to them is like traveling to different worlds.
That's so true! All these complex conversations make you think so hard that you sometimes forget which dimension you're in right now. It's when you don't get carried away by all the trippy animation that makes you lose track of the words.
Don't worry, Mr. Fullylover. You might consider yourself lucky, because I'm here to explain everything to you. Yes, Duncan explained where the initial idea of the apocalyptic worlds came from. It also has an explanation in the plot of the series. All the apocalypses happen because Clancy doesn't use green oil on his simulator and it overheats. But considering the fact that the Midnight Gospel is filled with esoteric symbols and existential metaphors, it's not the only reason why all these worlds come to an end.
It's not?
If we dig a little deeper, we notice that Clancy doesn't travel between actual worlds. He travels within a simulator that creates these planets. These journeys are in his mind. So basically, Clancy not caring about the computer he uses for his travels is a metaphor for him not caring about himself, thus hurting himself and those he meets along the way.
Wow, that's deep. I think I get it though. People can be pretty mean when they are overworked, or toxic if they have to live under constant stress and tension.
Well, that's one very straightforward way to put it, but it could be more complicated than that. If you pay attention to the series, for 5 episodes straight, Clancy tries to escape the chromatic ribbon dimension he lives in. He ignores the reality around him, hiding inside the simulator. At first, you think that it's because he is reckless and doesn't want to pay his debt off to his sister Sarah, who lent him money for the simulator. But when you get to the final episode, you realize that Clancy's trying to escape from more serious issues.
Do you mean that incredibly sad episode with his mother?
Exactly. In episode 8, Clancy interviews his deceased mother. Earlier in the season, he mentions that both of his parents are dead. Yet he meets his mother in the simulator and has a conversation with her about their life, about her death, about his loss. And to make it even more emotional, this episode contains a real interview between Duncan Trussel with his mother, Deneen Fendig, 3 weeks before she died of cancer.
Oh gosh, I didn't know that. It makes the last episode even sadder. I wonder how hard it was to share something so personal through your art. But hey, now it makes sense why Clancy's mother sometimes calls him Duncan. Oh boy.
Yes, Clancy's mother breaks the barrier between reality and animated story. And that's what could be the key to all the previous episodes with the worlds coming to an end. Clancy comes out of all these distant apocalypses unharmed. All these talks of life and death are actually his attempts to deal with his grief. He circles around his loss, his own end of the world, the death of his mother, trying to study the matters of life and death in order to understand it. He is safe in all these multiple worlds, because at any time he can withdraw himself from the foreign apocalypses. But facing his own grief, his own loss, it's too much. So Clancy tries to put that aside as long as he is able to. And when he does face all this, when he embraces the pain and says goodbye to his mother, it feels like the end of the world for him.
So that's why the chromatic ribbon dimension gets shattered as well.
Yes. Yet Clancy manages to survive. He faced his fear. He allowed his heart to break. And now he is able to carry on, to live and be in the moment.
Just be here now.
This is all so sad. Yet the last episode also somehow gives you hope. It makes you feel both very cold and very warm at the same time. It's like the kind of crying that makes you feel better.
Bittersweet, Mr. Fullylover. That's the word you're looking for. And what did the Midnight Gospel look like to you? Do you consider it dark or enlightening?
Let us know in the comments.